Hi everyone. I have worked for years in the area of child abuse. I have worked with parents whose kids have been taken from them. I've worked with the department in relation to all of that, and I set up a child protection party, a political party called the Child Protection Party. So my involvement around child protection has been quite intense, to say the least, until I chose to retire a couple of months ago. But every now and again, I come upon an article and become extremely angry that we still allow abuse to continue. And I'm going to cite a particular article which has come out of the Disability Royal Commission in relation to a couple of kids in Queensland. Now, at the time that this came to the attention of the media and the Department of Child Protection, these children were in their late teens. They had had the most horrific experience. Both these boys were autistic. They had a father who was extremely abusive of them, who kept them locked in their bedrooms for years, who treated them as in the most disgusting and disgraceful way. No services were provided for these two kids as they were growing up, and as they were even older adults, older adolescents, they were still wearing nappies. The condition was horrific. We would not tolerate conditions like this for animals. People would be involved with placards complaining about the condition of the treatment if this were dogs, cats, or whatever. So it's horrific to think that we allow this to happen. Now, I'm going to show you a little bit of this article, and then I'm going to talk about why I think that this is particularly concerning, not just the events, but there's something else happening here that I particularly find distressing. Now, in this article, the neighbour of two teenagers with autism found locked in their bedroom in 2020 has detailed the horrific conditions they were subject to. 17 and 19-year-old Caleb and Jonathan were forced to live in their own filth, wear nappies, eat raw meat, and were locked in their bedroom with only an air mattress for days at a time at their home in Brisbane's north. Now, I don't know what days at a time means, weeks, months. You know, the condition these kids were living in happened for years. So, I'm not too sure what days, how many days that is, but in Brisbane, a neighbour told the Royal Commission into Violence, Abuse, Neglect and Exploitation of People with Disability she befriended the boys and loved them like a mum. Now, my issue here in this, and this is the issue, is that if this woman had known these kids and liked them like a mum, why did she must have known what was happening to them. And why isn't it that she didn't choose to react or contact the department or whatever on multiple occasions? Because there is some indication that I think that the Department of Child Protection were called. And so I might just go through some of that here as we go further down this article. The neighbour said similar occurrences were commonplace. Caleb's nappy would be so full that it would hang down to his knees and he would hold it to keep his dignity. Terrible story. When they came out of their room, they would have feces or urine on their hands and they touched stuff as they went into the shower, so it was just everywhere. She said the house had been modified to restrict Caleb and John. So they knew this stuff was happening to these kids, but for whatever reason, didn't seem to do much about it. The neighbour told the Royal Commission Caleb Johnson's father knew how to game the system when government officials came to visit. He did tell them at one point that if child services came, all you had to do was fill up your fridge. Also, that the people at the school would write, wash me under the arm of children to make sure that they are being washed. He knew all the things to do that seemed like everything was okay. She said the Department of Housing came to inspect the property twice, but didn't enter the house either time. So this is my point. My point is that there were workers who came to the house and clearly didn't do their job. Now, I'd like to find out who those people were, who came to inspect this home, who were conned by this guy who was an alcoholic, terrible conditions in the home, and the housing people who must have known about what was happening to these kids because this neighbour, this woman who said that she felt like their mum, I don't know what that says about her, but it's quite appalling. But they chose. So they were notified, but they chose not to enter the home. Is that because they saw this as too hard? No consideration to the conditions that these kids were living in. None whatsoever. And they chose not to get involved. I find this horrific, not just because there's one instance, because in my experience over 30 odd years, I have heard these types of stories over and over again, where kids who desperately need help, they need the system to step in and take care of them because parents just aren't doing it. And they don't. And on the other hand, parents who are more than capable of looking after their kids, but for whatever reason have the department involved and they remove their children, often unnecessarily. It is wrong. And someone at some point needs to make a stand and stand up against such disgusting and inappropriate behaviour by departments to make sure that kids like Jonathan and Caleb are kept safe and that the appropriate services that are provided for these kids are offered. And that we don't do that, I find, is absolutely appalling. So if you'd like to subscribe to my channel, it would be really appreciated. So please do so. And if you've got any comments you want to make about any of this, please let me know down below. And if you would like to contact me, because I'm also offering opportunity for people to tell their stories, no matter what it is, not necessarily has to be around child protection or anything else. But if you've got a story to tell and you'd like to have a conversation with me and like me to video you and record that story, I'd be more than happy to do so as well. You can contact me on the email below. So thanks everybody for being with me. Take care, look after yourselves, and be safe. Whoops, punched the wrong button. Such is life. Now I'll punch this one.